With Champions League football on the line, both teams desperate for 3 points and knowing their seasons could be defined, Manchester United and Arsenal produced yet another classic. An early goal from Nuno Tavares, a penalty from Mikel Arteta and a Granit Xhaka thunderbolt gave Arsenal a gargantuan 3 points. But far from a perfect performance, what were Mikel Arteta's tactics and which Arsenal players stepped up? Well, don't forget to smash a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and here are the 5 things that we learned from Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1. First things first, Captain Martin Odegaard. This wasn't a perfect Arsenal performance and there are some key issues that we are going to address, but in terms of Martin Odegaard, the Arsenal captain of the day, with Odegaard captaining Arsenal for the 3rd consecutive match in the absence of Alexandre Lacazette on the bench. Yesterday, what we saw Martin Odegaard do was teach Bruno Fernandes how to do playmaking, and in terms of his overall game stats, a 94% pass accuracy with 47 accurate passes, 2 key passes, 0.42 expected assists, 62 touches, 1 successful dribble and 1 accurate cross. And with that performance, he was given the official BT Sports Man of the Match award. The stats there aren't ultra impressive, but when you watch the player play in full action, watching him live obviously in the stadium, you just get to see what Martin Odegaard's about. The class he oozes on the ball, the technique, the dribbling. What we have in Martin Odegaard is a simple yet very effective passer. It doesn't have to be always that final pass through the middle, but also in the build-up phase, dropping down deep, progressing the ball and just keeping the Arsenal attack going. Martin Odegaard is a metronome in the Arsenal attack. But also when it comes to that final pass as well, yesterday we saw that. First things first, that back heel for Eddie Nketiah, it should have been an assist, Nketiah should have scored. And it just showcased his ability to think on his feet, think fast and play an incisive pass. But also in terms of Arsenal's second goal, to win the penalty, it's Martin Odegaard's pass that plays through Bukayo Saka to break the United defence. That is the type of pass that Martin Odegaard thrives with. And I'm sure next season, when Arsenal have more runners in behind and these players are better when it comes to rotations, Martin Odegaard is only going to get more and more assists and get an even better involvement going forwards. But in this game, he was the Arsenal captain and this photo epitomises it. Bruno Fernandes just missed a penalty, Martin Odegaard, the passion, the desire, but also the performance to back it up as well. It was a magical Martin Odegaard performance. But when you're talking about the Arsenal attack, you just have to give a mention to the star boy in Bukayo Saka, scoring Arsenal's second goal via the penalty spot. And at 20 years and 230 days old, Bukayo Saka becomes the youngest player in Premier League history to score a penalty in consecutive appearances. We all know about Bukayo Saka at the Euros final. I was there live in the stadium and that is a massive, almost career-changing moment. To have that moment at the young age of just 20. This year, if Bukayo Saka was out of form, fans could have made excuses for him saying, listen Bukayo, he missed the penalty and his head's not there and he's not really there mentally. But instead, what we've seen Bukayo Saka do is step up and almost take this Arsenal attack, this Arsenal team, and say, now I'm the main player. A goal and assist versus Spurs, a goal versus Manchester City, a goal versus Chelsea and a goal versus Manchester United. Bukayo Saka has become a big game player, and what I like about Bukayo is authority now. Having missed the penalty in the summer, the last 2 penalties, he's picking the ball up and saying, no, this is my ball. We've almost seen a transition in responsibility. Of course, at the start of the year, our captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he's no longer here. In his absence, what you're seeing now is Bukayo Saka taking responsibility, saying, give me the ball, I'm the main guy now, and I'm going to put the ball into the back of the net emphatically. And in terms of the Arsenal attack, in the space of just 4 days, to go to Stamford Bridge, Chelsea, to play Man United at the Emirates, score 7 goals in the process, with 6 of those goals being scored by players 23 or under. But who do you think was the Arsenal standout attacker? Was it Martin Odegaard, was it Bukayo Saka, or was it someone else? Moving on to the second thing, and that's the impact of Granit Xhaka. The Arsenal career of Granit Xhaka has been a roller coaster, but in these last 2 games against Chelsea and this game at the Emirates against Man United, Xhaka has really stepped up and showed his impact in the absence of Thomas Partey. And in this game, the stats have done the talking. 81 touches, 66 passes completed, 10 passes into the final third, 4 passes into the opposition box, 3 ball recoveries, 3 crosses, 2 interceptions, 1 clearance, 1 shot, 1 goal, 0 fouls and 0 times dribbled past. And in the process, he was given the official Arsenal Man of the Match award. It was a very commanding performance and the pass accuracy speaks for itself, but most importantly, the goal itself, it won Arsenal the game. United came back into the game, game, they start to dominate, make chances, and if it wasn't for the Granit Xhaka thunderbolts, it could have very easily been a different result. But to score an absolute screamer, win Arsenal the game and take a massive step towards the top 4. For a player that has had so many issues with the Arsenal fans in the past, this was gargantuan. And as Mikel Arteta said on Xhaka's celebration with the fans, I was dreaming of that, he deserves it. If any fan would individually spend 5 or 10 minutes with Granit, or even 2 minutes because that's all you need, they would understand the person he is and how much he cares about the club. He's a player that simply hasn't gone away despite so many Arsenal fans begging for him to be sold over the years and saying he's not good enough. He stayed here, he stood strong, and in his performance we saw a Granit Xhaka masterclass. But when you're talking about the Arsenal midfield, let's talk about the real Egyptian king. Step aside Mo Salah, let's talk the Egyptian Pirlo in Mohamed El-Neni. As he said after the game, grateful for such a wonderful week. And his overall game stats with an 87% passing accuracy, 7 ball recoveries, 2 interceptions made, and 1 assist as well. When the going got tough for Arsenal, and Sammy just not being ready to fulfill the boots of Thomas Partey, Mohamed El-Neni has really and truly stepped up. He's given the Arsenal midfield far more steel, far more aggression and experience, and in these last 2 tough games against Chelsea and Man United, games that were must win for Arsenal, El-Neni has been a standout player in both of them, and he's a player that, you know, so many fans have criticised and said he's not good enough. But when you think back to it, the price tag that we paid for him of, what was it, £5 million, I could say that El-Neni has been a bit of a bargain. Now, I'm not saying he's world class, I'm not saying he's the future of Arsenal, but in terms of a backup player, a squad player, a player that has no complaints, is not an issue behind the scenes, El-Neni has proven in the last 2 games that he can be a very important player. But ultimately, he is out of contract at the end of the season, so comment below what you think Arsenal should do with the future of Mo El-Neni. And while you are down there, also let me know your Arsenal man of the match. On to the third thing, and that is weaknesses in the build-up. As I said in the intro, it was far from a perfect performance, and in that first half and second half, the amount of times the Arsenal players kept on giving the ball away in the build-up phase was a joke at times. Ultimately, United had a lot of chances, they missed a penalty, and let's be honest, on quite a few occasions, Lady Luck was on Arsenal's side. But looking into Arteta's tactics, we saw Arsenal press and defend in a 4-4-2 shape, and then move into the standard 3-5-2 attack. So there wasn't any massive tactical changes. I don't think this was a tactical issue. I think this was far more of a personnel-based issue. The likes of Aaron Ramsdale was not his usual calmness on the ball. Gabriel and White, I guess, did their jobs, but more importantly, the fullbacks, Nuno Tavares and Cedric Soares, they were very inconsistent technically. And that is why United looked at those 2 players and used them as press triggers. Every time Cedric got the ball to Tavares, you could see United players became a bit more aggressive in their pressing. And ultimately, it did make a lot of sense because that is Arsenal's key area of weaknesses. And I believe it's quite obvious what Arsenal are missing, and that is a certain Takehiro Tomiyasu. So to see him arrive with the Arsenal squad and to come off the bench in the final few minutes, as Tony Adams said after the game, Tommy came back right at the end there, which is great because I'm still scared about Cedric. He scares the life out of me, so it's good to see Tommy back in action. If we can get him back and solid defensively, I think we've got 4th. And I totally agree because what we have in Tomiyasu is not only is he important defensively because Sancho was causing Cedric so many issues, but most importantly in the build-up phase, the way that Arsenal have been so erratic in the build-up phase, it just does not happen with Takehiro Tomiyasu, who's of course ambidextrous, very good at both feet, and is just far more consistent technically and able to play out the back and not be pressed. But despite this not being Arsenal's best of performances, we still had a pretty convincing win in terms of the XG, as Arsenal had 2.81 to Man United's 1.98. And in that first half alone, Arsenal's XG was 2.57. So despite Arsenal not being at their best in the build-up phase, despite the likes of Tavares and Cedric struggling against the wingers, our form at the Emirates is simply that good that even at our worst of worst, we are still able to beat teams convincingly, which is I guess a positive sign going into the future. But despite of that, there are clear issues in this game. This is far from a perfect game, and going into the future, the return of Takehiro Tomiyasu is going to be gargantuan. But comment below your own thoughts on Mikel Arteta's tactics, and do you guys believe it was a deserved Arsenal win? Moving on to the 4th thing, and as Eddie Nketiah steps up. Looked down upon by so many Arsenal fans and almost put to one side. He's out of contract at the end of the season, he's not good enough for Arsenal, why is he still here? But when given a chance in the first team to start 3 consecutive games, let's be honest, we have seen a pretty decent player. After the game, Nketiah saying, big 3 points, enjoy your weekend, Gunners. It's a game where Nketiah could have and should have scored, but for me what he showcased was that you don't have to always score a goal to have a good performance. We saw some great hold-up play, him running down the channels, and just simple effective passes in the final third, keeping the Arsenal attack ticking forwards. Every time Arsenal got the ball into the final third, Nketiah was threatening, and the Arsenal attack was threatening. And what it showcases to us Arsenal fans is we don't require a special centre forward, someone who's able to do the basics pretty well, hold the ball up, keep it moving, and provide Arsenal an outlet going in behind is all we require to have a very functional attack. I'm not saying give Nketiah a new contract, but out of Lacazette and Nketiah. If Arsenal were to give a contract to one of those two players, you could argue that should be Eddie Nketiah. And that's because one player is younger, he will only get better, and he's showing signs that he has something to offer. But the other one, Alexandre Lacazette, is aging, he's getting worse with age, and doesn't really fit the profile physically of what Arsenal require. As always, talk to me down below in the comments about Mr. Eddie Nketiah. Do you believe that Arsenal should be trying to sign him down to a brand new contract? And moving on to the fifth and final thing, and that is twist and turns FC. I'm not trying to be that guy to say I told you so, but I told you so. This top 4 race is far from over, and yes, Arsenal have taken advantage of the last 2 games, but what I'm saying to you guys is, after the game against Southampton, I was getting so much abuse from not just people on YouTube, but people across all platforms, saying, Babs, how are you still being hopeful, being optimistic? You're being ultra positive, Arsenal's top 4 race is over. But I wasn't being positive or optimistic, I simply chose not to overreact. At the time of asking, Arsenal were only 3 points off the top 4 with having that 1 game in hand. So despite the obvious flaws and the 3 losses in a row, I just said to myself, there's still a possibility here, and Spurs against Brighton showed they were very vulnerable. And it was the same case in the last game against Brentford, as they went to Brentford's ground and drew 0-0, dropping 2 points, and Brentford were the better team. And talking about the great Spurs attack, well, Spurs have not registered a shot on target since April the 9th. That's 2 90-minute games with no shots on target with Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. They are still fantastic players, and Conte is still a great manager. But what it is showing is Spurs are still pretty vulnerable and far from the complete team. And in terms of the other results, you also had West Ham United losing 1-0 at Stamford Bridge to Chelsea. And that's a very important result there, because our next game of course is against West Ham. And what's very important to note is going into this game, we saw a very heavily rotated West Ham lineup. And that's because they're in the Europa League semi-final, so that's their main focus right now. And most importantly, they're in a bit of a centre-back crisis, with the only fit centre-back being Craig Dawson. And this game has only made that worse, with Dawson getting sent off, meaning he's going to miss the Arsenal game. But here is how the top 4 race looks as it stands. Arsenal move back into 4th place, 2 points clear of Spurs with the same games played, and 6 points clear of 6th place Man United, despite playing 1 less game. With West Ham away next, Leeds at home after, Tottenham away, Newcastle away, and Everton at home. Those games still aren't pretty easy, and there's some very difficult games there against teams like Newcastle who are in form, Everton fighting relegation, and of course Spurs away as well. And the most important thing is the top 4 race is back in our hands. You've got Tomiyasu returning to full fitness. We're not sure about Thomas Partey, but potentially he could return before the end of the season. Spurs have got to go to Anfield as well, so now 5 games away. It's not far, we can see it in a distance now. Do you guys believe that Champions League footy is returning to the Emirates Stadium? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. But that is the video there and there, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed as always, and if you have, make sure to smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you would like to follow your boy on all of those social medias, then the links will be down below in the description. Now that was the 5 things that we learned from Arsenal 3, Manchester United 1. Not the perfect performance, but a perfect result. And tomorrow, a massive video on the transfers. Gabriel Jesus, we're gonna have to wait and see. Until then, take care of yourselves. In a bit, peace.